Welcome, everybody. I'm Cecile, and I'm the coordinator of the Maji Center at NATE. Uh, at NATE, we honor and acknowledge that the land on which we learn, work, and live is Treaty 6 territory. This place is a traditional homeland for the First Nations and Métis people. And today, we are all part of this treaty land. The traditional name of this place is Amisquachi Waskikan, which we also call the City of Edmonton. I'd like to welcome Jackie Vernon to join us. Jackie is a planner with the City of Edmonton, and she's worked with the city for 6 years, I think, almost anyways. And we've had Jackie in before in the past, but she's got her MBA from Cape Breton University and her Master in Arts, I think it was, from the University of Alberta. And so happy to have Jackie join us. I'm going to pass it over to you, Jackie, and I'll put myself on mute.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me and welcome everybody. Thanks for the warm welcome, Cecile. What a wonderful day to be here with everybody and sharing some information about City of Edmonton business regulations. It's going to be a little bit unique for me to just talk for the first part, but I know this is the recorded part, so I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can. And then at the end, we'll turn off the recording and we'll really get into the Q&A and case scenarios. And hopefully then folks will have an opportunity to ask any burning questions you have about City of Edmonton business licensing, if you have them. So today what I'm going to do is share a little bit more about our programs. I work on a team at the city called the Local Economy Team, and we have a number of programs that students at NATE might be interested in accessing. And I'm here to share a little bit about those programs, then more about City of Edmonton regulations, and then hopefully how you can connect with us if you have more questions after the presentation. So we do have an email address, smallbusiness@edmonton.ca, and you're welcome to contact us there at any time if you have follow-up questions or want to talk to somebody one-on-one about your specific business idea. That's the one-on-one support program. Then we also, excuse me, sorry. We also have a workshop series where we take some of the main business types that we work with. Like, for example, we did a presentation specifically just for restaurant owners. So we try to look at the trends that we're getting through the one-on-one business support program. And if people are having a lot of questions about starting a new restaurant, we would take all of that information and try to put it into one summary presentation. So there's a link embedded in this presentation. Actually, there's all kinds of links embedded in this presentation. So I'll ask Cecile to share it out after so you guys can click the links. And the link to our workshop series is all of them are also recorded on our YouTube channel. So that link will take you there and you can watch the one on starting your dream food business if anyone here is starting a food business, or we've got a couple of other ones. And then our team also manages a few grant programs for business owners. So some of our grant programs are specific for businesses that are operating in a business improvement area like downtown or Old Strathcona or 124th Street. But we also have one grant program that's open to all current business owners. Then it's specifically focused on job creation. So I can share more information about that grant, or you guys can send a note to smallbusiness@edmonton.ca and I can connect you with the grant manager. So some resources there as well from our team. So I've been working with the one-on-one small business support program for the last 4 years, as Cecile mentioned, and these are the most common questions that I get from business owners, and specifically business owners that are starting their first business. It's hard when we're virtual. I can't see a show of hands, but maybe just chime in the chat. Is anybody starting their first business, or are most folks just kind of doing some research, or turn on your video and like wave if you're starting your first business? Yes, awesome, wonderful. So this is the most common questions that I see from new business owners. Is really they want to know, how do I get a business license? And it isn't always just this simple. So I'm going to dive in a little bit and share. And then folks also want to know, do I need any permits? And what kind of business activities can I do at a specific location? So I get a lot of folks who are looking to lease their first commercial space, and they really want to know what types of business activities they can do there. So I will try to help you figure it out, but most often it is really good to contact the city before signing your first lease. And this link, I have a little link in here that will lead to a map, and when we get to the Q&A session, we can check some zoning. It's like a zoning map. It's kind of a cool tool. So I'll show you guys all about that. Here's just a really quick reference guide of what kinds of things the City of Edmonton might be doing for your business startup, like what kind of approvals would come from the city versus other levels of government. This is just kind of a snapshot to show you that if you're starting, for example, a childcare business, you might also need to speak with the province because some business regulations aren't done through the city, they're done through the province. So I can also, if you are starting a new business, I can also help you get connected just to the right provincial areas if you have questions there. There's also the Government of Canada, and we do get a lot of new business owners who are doing something with imports or exports. And so that would be somewhere where you'd want to connect in with the federal government as well. The City of Edmonton, we're really focused on things really within the municipality. So zoning approvals, and for zoning approval, sometimes you might need development permits. Safety codes approval, that really is to check if the building that you're using meets the building code for the type of business that you want to do there. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. And then business licensing. And that's really where most people think when they think of the City of Edmonton, but we also, like I said, do the development permits and building permits as well. And then also sign permits. So if you are starting a new commercial business and you want to put up like a big, sign in front of your business, as you should, that would also need a permit. So we do that, those ones as well. So to answer the first question, how do I get a business license? Well, the really simple short answer is you simply apply. There's a link in here. It's going to take you to apply for the business license, and it's really based on address. So all City of Edmonton business licensing is tied to a specific address within the city. And if you're applying for a commercial property, you would put in the commercial address. If it's a home base, you'd put in your own personal residence where you're going to be running the business. We also have a category for businesses that are based out of town. So if you don't live in Edmonton and you're not planning to lease a space in Edmonton, but most of your business activities are going to be within the City of Edmonton, you could get the non-resident license. So that's just kind of a different way of doing it for businesses that are maybe located in Calgary or another municipality, but then they're going to be operating in Edmonton. Trying to think what else to say on this one, except that I'm going to walk you through what happens if, so in the previous slide, it says you choose either commercial location, home-based, or based out of town. And I'm going to walk you through what would happen if you are operating as the home-based business. So let's say you choose home-based. And really from the city's perspective, the home-based business really means that you live at the same property that's going to be the location of your primary business activities. So some folks do want to purchase a residential property and maybe turn it into something that's a little more retail or a little more restaurant, and they're not planning to live there. And I can, if that's your business idea, it sometimes can work out. But most residential businesses, the person's living at the property, they're also running the business there. A really common example that we get is, professional consultants. They might just be using their home as an office, but doing some consulting services at different offices around town, or contractors who would be using their home as the office, but then doing their contractor work in different commercial locations. Or you could have a business like a personal services business like acupuncture or hairstyling and be having clients actually coming to your home for those kinds of services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like from the city's perspective as well. So you've submitted the application there on our website. You've chosen home-based. It's going to ask you a number of questions to try to figure out what kind of home-based business you are. So the city has two kinds of businesses that we are interested in figuring out. Are you a minor home-based business or are you a major home-based business? So we're going to ask some different types of questions to try to figure that out. Questions like, what kind of business activities are you doing on site? Are you just using the home as an office, or are you planning to have people coming to the home? Are you planning to use your garage for anything? So a common one I get is actually like arts or creative businesses, and folks want to convert their garage into like a photography studio or an art studio, and which is a very cool idea. So we would ask those kinds of questions about what you're planning to do there. And really what the city is trying to figure out is, are you kind of like taking up any vehicle or parking spaces? So if you're using your garage, we would consider that kind of a reduction in parking. And then trying to figure out if there's going to be any other impacts to the neighborhood. So is this going to cause some traffic in the neighborhood? Is this going to cause a little bit of disruption for your neighbors? Usually, most home-based businesses would probably have no impact to the neighbors. They would just be very invisible, and you could be doing that business there and no one would even know you were there. So that would be more on the minor home-based business. If the city reviews the application and then they're going, okay, there might be some impacts to neighbors, like you're having multiple visits to the home every day, you're taking up some of the parking on site, they would consider that to be the major home-based business. And a major home-based business is still allowed, or still usually allowed, but it does require a development permit. So in the case of that, we would consider that the home occupation permit. So before even issuing the business license, in this case, you would be asked to submit some additional information for the home occupation permit. And I think my next slide, yeah, okay, so my next slide just goes into a little bit more about major home-based business development permits. But really the considerations are, what are you doing at the property? Are you having a bed and breakfast there? That would always be the major home-based business. Is there any light or noise or something that might impact your neighbors? And if you're having more than one business visit to the property every day, that's for sure a major home-based business. So if you're asked to also get the development permit before getting your business license, there is a fee for that. It's an additional step essentially before getting the business license. And there is like an administration processing fee, and neighbors within your property are notified, and they would have 21 days to appeal the city's decision. So I guess essentially the only difference with the major home-based business is the city said, hey, this is a little bit more significant than just doing something really minor like a home office. We think the neighbors, have a right to know. They would have 21 days to be notified about the business, and then if they wanted to appeal it for any reason. And usually if the city is approving a major home-based business, they're not going to approve something that they feel would be uncharacteristic of a residential area anyways. So it's usually the neighbors, go, okay, awesome. There's a new acupuncturist next door. So they get kind of excited that there's a new business coming into the area. Okay, I'm going to give some examples. I'm just going to pause. Sorry, I can talk fast, so I'm just going to try to slow myself down. And it is like just a little bit more different style of just talking at you for a short while here, so bear with me. Oh, Cecile, go ahead.
There is a question about, like, for example, Chitra says, if you're a hairstyling business, for example, that would be considered a major home-based business?
If you had only one, and sorry, I've done something with my layout where now I can't see it. If you have only one customer every day, it might be a minor home-based business. It kind of just depends on the scope of what you're planning to do.
But a
But
hairstylist would probably have several, right?
yeah, if you wanted to have more than one a day, it would be the major home business. And usually what the city would approve up to is about 5 or 6 per day. So they probably wouldn't approve more than that. Once it starts getting into that high traffic, high volume of clients coming to the home, they would consider that to be a little bit uncharacteristic of a residential property and probably have that a little bit more for a commercial location. As well with personal services, I think that they tend not to allow you to also have an employee. So you could be the hairstylist operating out of your home, but I don't believe they would allow you to like sublet part of your house to another hairstylist. But it would be on a case-by-case basis. And I definitely would encourage you, if you do want to do that major home-based business and have kind of some questions about what might be allowed, definitely contact the one-on-one program and we can make sure to get you like accurate information if what you're planning would be allowed or not. That's an awesome question. Yeah, so some examples would just be like, one visit to the home each day, or folks that are making goods at the home, but they're being sold elsewhere. Or contractors often do the minor home business. They're really just using their home as an office and then doing their services all over the city. So this is a minor home business. This is a very common one. We get tons of those. Major home business is just a little bit bigger in scale. So if there's any storage on the property, if there's more than one visit a day, and if you're having an employee coming to the house every day, then that's considered to be the major home business. So those are a few examples of where your business might scale up a little bit and you might be major instead of minor. And so that, I mean, again, all this just to say that you might also need a development permit before getting your business license. And lots of times people are really worried about the neighbor notification. I always just try to reassure people it's free advertising. Your neighbors are probably going to be pretty excited to know if there's like a new baker in the neighborhood. That would be something that would really excite me. So usually it's just a really positive thing. Neighbors get excited about your new business, but I mean, the city is obligated to notify them that they do have that 21-day window to make any appeals. So that is kind of tough, but like it kind of just delays you getting your business license essentially, but don't be scared of it, I guess is all I'm saying.
Julian had a question. I don't know if you want to talk about it now or wait
Yeah.
till after. And it was, what's the incidence of appealing
Okay,
decisions?
that's a great question. I don't have any stats on that. I could definitely get back to you with the stats on the number of appeals. When I did talk to a development officer before, I believe it was a very low incidence. Like most of these, if the city's approving it, it means that it does comply with the zoning bylaw. The city's not going to approve something that doesn't already comply with the zoning bylaw. So if the city says, yep, you can do this, it probably is in compliance. So the neighbors would have to have a grounds for appeal of something that, you know, the city maybe missed, or, you know, a really negative impact on them. Yeah, so I can't think off the top of my head of any recent ones that I've heard of where a major home-based business was appealed. But usually neighbors' most common complaints about home-based businesses would be traffic and parking. So if it is a very congested area, the neighbors might want to appeal based on that. But again, we could look at the case-by-case basis and see how likely it was that the city would approve it. And really, the appeals is kind of a wild card. We don't really know. Don't really know what your neighbors, how they'll react, but usually it's very positive. That's, I would say most of the time, 99% of the time, it's very positive. Okay, and I think I saw another question. I can't really, on my screen, I can't see the chat as well. Okay. If you were denied a permit for a minor home-based business, then do you automatically get the major home-based business? So every residential zone in the city of Edmonton has a minor home-based business as a permitted use. So what that means is that every zone, if it's zoned for residential use, a minor home-based business is allowed. There would be no reason to deny you for the home-based business, unless if it didn't fit into the characteristics of a home-based business, then they would reject it. But if it does fit into those qualities that make it a minor home-based business, then you would be allowed. Yes, and so if they don't think it's a minor, they would automatically assess it as a major. And if you fit the characteristics of a major home-based business, then they would contact you for more information to process that. But they would never just move ahead and issue the major home-based business permit without first talking to you about you know, hey, we've taken a look at the application, we've done our initial review, you're considered a major home-based business, these are the next steps. So you definitely get contacted along the way. Okay, cool.
Did you see Mary's? Sorry, it was is she's dealing with business. Yeah, so it's different. She doesn't live in Edmonton. She lives in another community. So does she have to have, if some of her companies that she works with are in Edmonton, Leduc, Nisku?
Yeah, so this would be the non-resident. I think let's take this one. Let's save this one for the end, and then we'll talk a little bit about you know, business licensing in Edmonton if you live in another community. Let's save this one. This is a very good question and a very common question, especially with the rise of mobile. Like, I mean, businesses are virtual now. They go all over the world. So yes, very good question. Let's talk about it in the off. Let's get into the goods after. For a minor home-based business in an apartment building, does that depend on the building management to approve or not? So the city of Edmonton doesn't go and check with apartment owners or condo owners before issuing a business license. So the city of Edmonton will issue the license just based on the zoning bylaw and then based on the business license bylaw. And if your business complies, you would be issued the license. However, I am aware that some condo boards and apartment buildings do not permit the tenants to operate a business there. So I would really check with your apartment first before applying. I think one of the questions on the business license application is if you have the permission of your landlord. So you have to feel comfortable that you can check off that box, like that you've just let them know or that they said it was okay, because the city isn't going to go and check with them first. We're just going to process the application based on the municipal bylaws. So yeah, hopefully that helps there. But yes, that is a question I get. And a lot of folks get nervous too because they're submitting the application and it says, do you have permission from your landlord? And then they get worried that maybe the city and the landlord, will have, maybe it's not going to line up and the city's going to contact the landlord. But I don't believe that that's not a step in our process. So it's always good to check with your landlord first. Just make sure that it's going to work out. Okay, so then once you've gone through the development permit step, that's when it goes back to the business license team. For home-based business, it's usually just a review by our zoning team to see if you need that major home-based business development permit. And if you don't, if you're just the minor home business, then it just goes back to the business license step. This is where the city is also reviewing to see if there's any exemptions. So some folks who are running a business, the one that I've gotten a lot of lately is nurses. So if you're running a business and your business is already regulated by the province, you might be exempt from the municipal business license. So it's always good to check with the city as well. And you can check first before the application by contacting the one-on-one team, or you can check just by simply applying for the license and including your professional designation. So a common one I see is acupuncturists, but lately I've been seeing a lot of social workers or nurses, and they're running their business they're running their business using their professional designation, and they would not need a business license. So you would still go through the review process to get the zoning review and then be marked as exempt in our system. So that's always a good, you'll still submit the application, but you might be told you don't need to pay the fee and you'll get marked as exempt. So that's another thing that might happen to you if you fit into any of these categories. If you're, for example, an acupuncturist, but you're opening a restaurant, you would still need a business license for the restaurant. It's only if you're working in that professional capacity. But there are a lot of these exemptions, so you can always check with us. I think there's like over 300. And another exemption as well is farmers markets. So folks selling just at farmers markets are also exempt. So farmers market vendors. So that's a nice one too if you want to start really small scale and not start with the business license. So I'm just going to spend the last few minutes just on specifically commercial. Commercial and industrial businesses are very site specific because really what the city is trying to figure out is, are you allowed to do those business activities there? But also, is there a health and safety component that the city should be aware of? And do you need a building permit to make sure that the building complies with the safety codes? So these examples are very, very site specific. I really recommend if you're signing a lease or starting your first commercial business, definitely contact our one-on-one program. We can go through the location with you. We can talk to a development officer about the zoning. We can talk to a safety codes officer about like the specific building and construction, and just make sure there's not any red flags on the property for you. Here's some examples of businesses that probably wouldn't be approved in a residential location. So they probably really should go into a commercial property. Really, if you're running a contracting business and scaling up, you're getting lots of equipment that really shouldn't be stored in your backyard, for example. Your neighbors probably aren't going to like that. So that's when we would say, okay, well, now it's time to lease a space. Like you're getting pretty big. And same thing with anyone running like their personal services business out of their home. At some point, you're going to grow and like outgrow the home location. So then it's time to kind of lease a space. That would be a nice step up. And one thing that the city would not approve for home-based business is like unscheduled and frequent visits. So you can't really open like a grocery store in your living room and just having people like come and shop. Really, if you are going to be doing the home-based business, your clients have to be coming by appointment and a maximum number a day. So if that makes sense. And not really overlapping, like, 10 people coming all at once, it's not going to be permitted. It's just too much traffic for the residential area. So when you apply for the commercial industrial business license, there's quite a few more steps that you go through. When you apply for the home-based business license, it's really just a zoning review. They're like, okay, are you minor, are you major? We'll figure that out, and then you go from there. For the commercial industrial business, as I mentioned, there's a few more reviews that you might need to get. So for one, they do the zoning review to see if you need a development permit. There's also a safety codes review to see if you need a building permit. So here they're checking to make sure that the space complies with the building code. So for example, if the space was previously a retail space, but now you're starting a restaurant, there might be significant renovations that you need in order to make it safe to operate the restaurant there. So that's really what they're looking for. And if it's determined you need any permits, then you would need to submit a separate application for those permits. Those would need to be reviewed and approved by the city. So some of the permits that you might need to get, you might need to get a development permit, you might need to apply for a building permit, and you might need subtrade permits if you're doing any plumbing and gas or electrical work to the space. So this can really add, I guess, this can really add some timelines to your application for your business license, because all of these applications need to be submitted, reviewed, and approved. Then if you are doing any construction, you have to complete that and have it inspected. And some businesses also need a fire inspection before the business license can be issued. So in this case, in the case of the commercial and industrial business, the business license is really like a sandwich. It's the first thing you apply for using your floor plan, but then it's also the last thing you're going to get. So this can be a surprise, to say the least. This can be a surprise for business owners who expect that they would apply for their business license and then be issued it very quickly to open right away. So this is why it's always good, if you are leasing that commercial space, contact the one-on-one program, speak with a business support person. We'll go through all these steps with you and kind of try to figure out a timeline. You know, do you need a development permit? How long is that going to take? Do you need a building permit? How long is that going to take? And then you can really talk to your landlord and say, you know, I talked to the city, I'm going to need these permits. It's going to take a couple of months before I can even start my construction. And then you can build that into your timeline so you're not kind of caught off guard and surprised. I'm just going to check. Okay, so I don't see anything else in the chat. Commercial businesses is always where it gets a little bit like case specific, so we can save those for the Q&A as well. So when it comes to timelines and fees, the home-based business is a really quicker process, of course. So if it's a minor home-based business, you could expect to get your business license very quickly. Just be a matter of submitting the application. The city will follow up if they have any questions. If you need a development permit, you'll be told, and then that takes a little bit of time. But eventually, you know, after a couple of months, even with the major home-based business, you'll have your license issued. For the commercial business, if you need permits and you're planning to do construction, this could take some time before you'll get your business license. All of the construction work has to be finished and inspected. So it's really going to be a scenario case-by-case basis, and we can work out a timeline with you on the one-on-one program. So I think we're almost at the end, people, I promise. A very unique scenario I see a lot is food preparation. A lot of times folks want to do the administration in their home, but maybe they're also leasing a commercial kitchen. This is really an Alberta Health Services requirement, the commercial kitchen. So if you are starting a food business, it's always good to talk to Alberta Health Services and the one-on-one program at the same time, and just figure out like where is the best location for your business. Sometimes Alberta Health Services will say, okay, it's really low risk, you can do it from your home. And then sometimes they're going to say, no, this is a higher risk food, or this has some other implications. You really need a commercial kitchen. And then you can figure out if you're going to lease a commercial kitchen, build one in your house, which I have seen a lot of people build a commercial kitchen in their house, or kind of like what the next steps are. So yeah, so the unique food is a little bit unique. It's a very common business, but it also involves another, it also involves Alberta Health Services as another regulatory partner. So we'll always loop them into the conversation. Okay, now we can stop. I can stop talking at you. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for all the questions throughout. This has been awesome.